3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock around the clock tonight. Are we ready to rock and roll?
Hey everyone, you're listening to Nerds Out of Water with Michael Lobb and David Camus.
Welcome to Nerds Out of Water. Nerds Out of Water is a podcast brought to you by Michael Lobb and myself, David Camus. We're two good friends who have been partnering on and off for 20 years. Michael runs TeamScale, providing trusted technology advice and solutions to companies having trouble scaling up, enabling those businesses to grow and keep their technologies on track.
And David runs One Bright Cloud, where he heads up a team of techs and futurists looking at autonomous vehicles, AI, and digital transformation as a prerequisite for Industry 4.0. We try to challenge our own perspectives throughout this podcast, and we try to see things from other people's perspectives. You don't have to agree to us, but after listening to this show, you should definitely have an idea about it.
Michael, it's been a very, very busy few months, suffering through working from home and everything else. I've been trying to keep up with it all as it happens and trying to keep people informed that are around me. How have you been going? What is our first topic for today?
So you said suffering through. I prefer working from home with my dogs, with my house, with my fresh air, with being able to make a cup of coffee whenever I want without being harassed in the lunchroom. When we start going back to work, we really need to evaluate a few things. And I've had a few discussions this week with people about what it might look like in the future. You know, do we actually need these big, expensive office buildings? Do we need to pay rent for 200 people when 75 of them could work from home? You know, there's a lot of things that went right during this pandemic, and you know, sure, there's a lot of stuff that's gone wrong, but there's a lot of things that we need to really think about and consider that's gone wrong. For example, you know, being able to work from home gives you a little bit more independence. You get I personally get a lot more work done, and I know a lot of my peers do. You become good at communicating, and you said at the beginning, you've been trying to keep people busy and informed and understanding what's going on.
I tend to agree. When I say I'm suffering through on my acreage here at Sanford Valley, looking out the window at the moment to all the trees and the wildlife around me. It's been a struggle for me with the people around who are not used to working from home. Most of my work, as yours, is long distance, and we do meetings again and again. I've found it really good. I've actually even enjoyed teaching the young kids from school that have been here.
Okay.
I've got 3 little kids who are here, and I've actually enjoyed teaching them in between meetings.
Right. It's like, you know, I've got the same. I've got peers who absolutely despise working from home. They'd much prefer to be in an office because, you know, they have the ability to talk to people. They have the social contact. They have photocopiers and high-speed printers and a bubbled water machine, for example. You know, some of the things that I've heard. Some of the things I've heard are about, you know, they're forgetting to clock out at the end of the day. They feel as if they're isolated and out of the loop. One of the things that frustrates me about working from home is I don't always have full access to the things that I need. You know, if I need to get to a server, I've got to go through a couple of hops to get to it in some cases. You know, in some cases, coworkers look at you working from home and say, oh, you must be having a holiday. The fact of the matter is most people are working harder from home and they're more productive. We're going to talk about this a bit later, but you know, we've got a lot of cybersecurity problems now because working from home means you're opening up your firewall or your corporate firewall to external people. And in the past, these things may not have been thought about, so they haven't really considered this as we've gone into this working from home situation. Do you have any tips from your perspective from working from home? Like, what have you found has helped?
So what I've been trying to tell people is they really need to understand the value of actually FaceTiming people. So seeing somebody face to face is something that we're used to in everyday life. In every job we do, we're walking into a room, we're talking over the the bubbler, and we're getting drinks, and we're having that 10-second conversation that could take an hour of emails, and you get things resolved. So don't underestimate that FaceTiming where you can actually see someone's expressions and be able to give them your expressions.
Are you a video camera on or a video camera off guy? I know we've got our video cameras off at the moment because we're saving bandwidth, but
I'm a video camera on. I have my video camera on whenever I am Skyping, whatever the video technology we're using. I'm a video camera on guy.
So you have video camera on as long as you're wearing pants.
Well, as long as I'm wearing a top, I don't mind the pants because it's under the desk. As long as I don't have to stand up.
Great.
Other tips, we need to be professional, and I suppose professional means we wear pants. We look the piece. We make our area around us neat and tidy so that we can be professional in a manner that is expected us. And each one of us will be professional in a slightly different way, whether we are a call desk person working from home, an architect, or an engineer. Whatever we're doing, we will be having our own requirements of our desktop.
Yeah.
Be responsive. That's something that's really strong in my view. We need to make sure that when someone emails you, they're expecting you to be responsive. And one of the things that you said were something about the co-workers thinking you're slacking off. I was speaking to a young lady the other day, and she's working harder from home than I believe she's ever worked before. There was a 10-minute lag in her Skype at one point, and her micromanaging boss asked her to take that 10 minutes off of her time. So not only have you got to be responsive, as a manager, you've got to understand people have to get up away from their computers and go to the loo. They have to get up and make the teas and coffees as they do in their own desks. And people aren't always going to be there, but be responsive when you are there.
So, I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, one of my tips is that, physical and mental health is really important during this time. And at the end of the day, we're at home. The fridge is just over there. You can go and get a snack whenever you want. I'm probably drinking a bit more coffee than I would in the office, simply because it's a bit 50-50, because in the office, I'd probably go for a coffee in order to get away from my desk and to go and have a meeting. But here it's like, I'm going to go and make a coffee. So I'll go and make a coffee. And maybe, it's not an unhealthy amount, but some days I go, well, I think I've had a bit much coffee, but, and the snacking and things like that. But also the mental health side of things, you need to give yourself a bit of space to be yourself. And when you're working from home, you're sharing your work environment with your personal environment. And that means that you have to create that clear separation between you at work and you at home. And if you don't do that, then that becomes that causes stress and causes problems within your family unit.
Yeah. Keep it professional. So your professional desk is your work desk, is your professional desk. And mental health has been and is going to be over 6 months plus a problem for many people. I was speaking to a gentleman the other day. His job is literally to go out and talk to people and talk to people and talk to people. So his day, every day, is face-to-face talking to people. He lives alone, and he is finding it so hard. Even with the video Skyping and with phone calls, he's just finding it really hard mentally that his job isn't working out for him because he can't actually go out and see people.
Yeah, feedback is really important for some people, isn't it? Where, if you're especially if you're in sales where you're doing really hands-on, work, or you're in a service industry where you're actually, where that feedback, as in, thanks for that, gives you the idea that you've done a good job. You're not getting that anymore as much, or you're getting it in a different way. So therefore, it's really tough on those people who do have that constant face-to-face connection, and they get that they get their own feedback from that as well. If that's causing problems, it's really difficult to get past that and to move on to a point where you can get feedback in other ways.
Yes, well, this guy, he's a headhunter, and I didn't expect it from him, but yeah, it's very interesting. I work with their board to try and develop new strategies, as I'm doing with many boards at the moment, on how we're going to get them or their particular business out of this. Very interesting times. And what I've been telling people is, turn the con of not having people around into a pro of looking at your business. Look inwards.
Yeah. And if you are having any issues and you're struggling with it, don't be a stranger. Call out to a friend or a colleague, or call Beyond Blue on 1300-224636 and have a chat with somebody about it, because it is serious, and your mental health is important. Did you have any more tips? Because I kind of cut you off on that.
When you're talking to your team, make sure that they know what is expected by you and what your expectations of them are. So have touch points with the team so that each of you aren't left behind or expecting something to appear when it doesn't.
Yeah, I think setting expectations is really important, making sure that you know who and what is required, or who needs to provide what at what point in time, and setting timeframes as well. I mean, that's one thing we've learned over a long period of time is, if you don't have a time frame for something, then it'll never get done.
That's right. And that happens with every meeting I go to, let alone working from home. Knowing timeframes and knowing what is going to be delivered and when it's going to be delivered is paramount. And who's going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. You need to, as you said earlier in this piece, we've got to use this opportunity as a way to look inward and build our businesses so that they are resilient to whatever's going to come next. Even if that is murder hornets, I don't care. But anyway, so hopefully in a year's time, the businesses that have survived, and I know that there's going to be a lot of businesses who don't survive, which is unfortunate, but hopefully those people learn from this situation and can move into something that actually, is more resilient, and because they've been through this and they know what to expect. I also hope that it doesn't cloud people's ability to innovate and be risk takers, because I'm worried that without the risk takers, we're not going to actually move forward. And right at this point in time, we need to take risks in order to understand what's going to work and what's not going to work. So, some of the innovative ways that people are doing or pivoting their companies are actually quite creative and interesting for me.
I have to say I fully agree. When I do a lot of work with the tourism and travel industry, and on the number of boards there, and what I've been advising businesses who are restaurants, who are pubs, who are tourist industry operators, is throw away what you've done to date from a pricing point of view. From now onwards, when you reopen with new pricing, new tours, new meals, so that there's no comparison, because when we reopen, it's going to be a completely new environment. Your food's going to cost different, the travel's going to cost different, fuel will cost different, and the number of people you can take will alter the costs that you are going to be selling your products and your services for. So right now, when you reopen the door, reopen it from fresh. And this is a statement I keep telling people.
Yeah, it's going to be different. you can only fit a certain number of people into a restaurant now. So, that meal that used to cost you $12, the $12 palmy might now cost, $24 because they used to be able to fit 20 people in that room.
But now it's a $12 it's a palmy with added bacon.
Yeah.
So you change it slightly so they can't.
Yeah.
It does sound nice, doesn't it? So change what you're selling slightly so there isn't a comparison.
Yeah, a $12 Parmigiano with a bottle of whiskey. That sounds good. Anyway, let's move on.
Better with
Let's move on. You've got a few things. We mentioned cyber threats before, and I know you've got a bit to say on this.
Yeah, well, One Bright Cloud has been working with a number of businesses and government departments over this few month period, trying to get people and trying to get businesses to understand and quantify the risks that they have within their cybersecurity. So what are those risks? Where are they? And what is the cost to the business against the cost of securing it? Mm-hmm. And if I can say one thing that we've noticed over the last month and a half, it's cyber criminal activity is off the page.
So what sorts of things are causing that? I get my daily scamming emails, probably 20 a day. They all go to my junk mail because I've got decent filters set up and decent spam protection and decent malware protection. But I guess a lot of companies don't have that, or maybe they haven't updated it for a couple of years, or their IT department is lagging behind a little bit in being able to support their email servers. But there's other things as well. Like I know that they're using, a lot of intrusion kind of software as well.
Yeah. Yep. Well, there's as we're moving into this digital era and we've got Industry 4.0 coming on board, we're moving many of our applications into the cloud and our data is going into the cloud. And that's really, really safe and to a degree. But having cloud vulnerability is a new threat that people aren't expecting. So now we've got to look at the security of who is accessing it, how they're accessing it, and legacy data systems, because we now have got legacy data systems that are 10, 15 years old interacting from a server in our building with cloud data. And I know that you've been working on businesses around legacy data. Have you got anything to say to that one?
Look, everyone, the common argument that we used to have a few years ago was, why would I want to move it into the cloud? That way, it's insecure in the cloud. We don't know what's happening in the cloud. We don't know what they're doing with their data. That's one of the biggest lies that people tell themselves. Cloud is no more or no less vulnerable than it's probably less vulnerable than your server hosted in your server room. I can guarantee that there are more smart people. I'm not saying that your people aren't smart, but there are more smart people working on Amazon, Google, IBM, Rackspace, any of those providers than there are at your company, unless you are one of those companies, of course. And if you are, come on our podcast. We'd like to talk to you. Yeah. The biggest issue at the moment is people are working from home. They need access to legacy systems. They might be Windows applications, or they might be. I hope not, but I'm guessing they need access to things like mainframes as well. The issue that they have is that access is being granted to these systems from outside of the company, and therefore it opens up a little bit of a hole. I've always said that the biggest vulnerability is people. Social engineering can probably get through 90% of the problems that actual hacking can't get through. So I would, you need two things around vulnerabilities inside your network. One is good security, good firewalls, good Switch is good, malware protection, email protection, things like that. But you also need education and telling people, don't tell anyone your password over the phone. If something does look suspicious, don't click on it. If you need to, and if you think your account's been compromised, call someone about it. Change your password. Do things like that.
That's quite interesting saying all that, Michael, because One Bright Cloud actually worked with another company, a specific training company for cybersecurity. And once we've done a piece of training, that social engineering part of it, we then attack that business with with phishing emails, and we send phishing emails, hey, you need to, your help desk is upgrading you to Office 365. Please, can you log into here? The simplest of ones. And everyone's upgrading something at the moment. So people click on it. It looks like their company website. They log in. They've lost it. And we're doing a lot of training around that area.
If I can recommend one podcast, listen to Darknet Diaries. It's a really good podcast on cybersecurity and some interesting stories, and they're told in a really interesting way by a guy called Jack Rhysider, who is a great storyteller around these very technical kind of attacks, and he's got some really great guests on there as well. So not being paid or sponsored, but I would suggest listening to that.
I agree. I listen to those quite often. I had a listen to one only recently regarding the Dutch company who went under, and they had incredible security in place, but left a card inside their server so they could produce security messages. But yeah, very interesting. Yeah. So, cloud vulnerability is one.
We've got a lot of vulnerabilities around AI as well. I mean, one of the interesting AI-related threats is I could say a couple of keywords right now that would open your phone and do something on it. I could say, "Okay, Google, call Mum."
Oh, thanks for that. Could you stop doing that? Now I'm phoning my mum in the UK. Cancelled.
I know. That's we saw about that with Amazon advertising on television, and anyone with an Alexa device. Sorry, I just said that word again. Was their Alexa would call up. I said it again. Their device would call up and make an order for something, and it would, they didn't know about it. One of those other buzzwords that we're talking about lately is blockchain, and obviously there are inside the blockchain there's some blockchains. There's smart contracts, and we run into people that are building malicious uses or malicious intrusions into those smart contracts to enable things to happen that shouldn't happen and data to be changed. You wouldn't be able to change the data in a blockchain, but you'd be able to exploit it later.
And similar with the social engineering, as we're exploiting people's sensitivities at this time. More and more people are putting more and more information onto social media platforms that is picked up by ads that are very targeted. And one of your most favorite thing, clickbait, is getting worse and worse. And clickbait can just lead you down a very, very destructive path.
I found a way to avoid clickbait.
Tell us more.
I browse the web with my eyes closed. Okay, that joke didn't hit home, did it?
Anyway,
in terms of social engineering attacks, obviously one of the social attacks using people's information and what to exploit them. Deepfake's another one that's been coming out as well. So, where we can put people's faces on a fake video and, use that to encourage people to do things that they wouldn't normally otherwise do. We've all seen it with different comedians using deepfake to impersonate other people, which is actually quite funny. Has been used quite maliciously to impersonate people who might be scamming their grandmother out of out of money because they're stuck overseas and they use it as a video call. We've also seen not so much deepfake, but CGI versions of people in situations that have actually been promising as well. Where there was an incident a few years ago where they were using a CGI generated girl to lure predators into a situation where they could be arrested.
Whoa.
For things that we shouldn't probably discuss on this podcast. Anyway, the things that my tips are, any company doesn't matter. If you're using computers, which you are, prioritize cybersecurity. And when I say cybersecurity, I mean security, because really it's not cybersecurity anymore. It's security of your data, your customers' data, your staff data. It's security, and you need to set up a strategy around that to assess and classify the data that you have, so that you know what the biggest priorities are and how you're going to protect them. Run a security audit on a regular basis. David, you were talking before about doing some training inside a company. That's also a brilliant way of, like I said, people are probably the most insecure part of a network, and if you can get someone like yourself to come along and do some training in that way, then that's going to help you, down the track.
And you've got to invest. You have to look at what your risks are, what your data is worth, and what the cost investment of the tools that you need to do your security, whether that be antivirus or firewalls or really strong security, and make sure everybody has dual factor access. So if you're going to get people to log into any information, they need to have two-factor authentication. Always assume that your first layer of authentication has gone. And that way, you're going.
We talk about zero trust. You should not trust anything on your network. And it doesn't matter if it's in your secure server room, or if it's in the cloud, or if it's in someone's laptop or whatever. Don't trust anybody. From there, add trust. Don't start with a situation of, we trust everybody and we'll just, remove it as we need. Start from a no trust perspective and then allow.
And from a story of an old auditor who used to go into, as somebody who used to look at vulnerabilities in banks, she used to walk into regional banks and she would say she's an auditor and she needs to look at X, Y, and Z. And she would always choose a time over lunch where the manager wouldn't be around, and people would just give her access. They would come in through the front door. And what I'm trying to say with that is, don't expect your threat to be unobvious, because the obvious threats are the ones that are most likely. If you've got a card that has to be in to get to X, Y, and Z information, take it out and only put it in when it's required. Just lastly on that subject, make sure you have a backup policy. Make sure you back up. Make sure you test your backup. Make sure you retest your backup. Make sure you really test it. Because if somebody gives you a ransomware attack and they've taken over your servers, the ability to just turn off and start again will be a lot less than the ransomware attack that they're asking for.
Yeah, and don't back it up to the same. Don't just back up to the same place. Back it up to the same place for convenience, but take it somewhere else. For just as an example, story on that. We've had not a client, actually, just a colleague of mine who had all of his customer data stored on a database in Amazon. Backed it up to Amazon because that's what you do. It's an easy way to back it up. You just click a button and it does it. It stores that in a separate in a separate region. However, the hackers got into his Amazon account because he didn't have two-factor authentication. He used his root account for most things, and the password was the same as his Gmail account. they managed to get in there, remove it. They obviously exported his entire customer database. They'd removed the backups. They put a hackware thing on there to get him to pay, $2,000 in Bitcoin, and then he couldn't restore anything from backup because they had access to his Amazon account. So the best bet is to, maybe weekly or every now and then take a copy from Amazon and put it in, I don't know, on a USB drive somewhere, or back it up to an FTP server, or put it into into, I don't know, God forbid, open an Azure account and store it there.
And look,
something that, but primarily don't use your root account on Amazon, and don't make sure you got two-factor authentication, and make sure you use a unique password. 3 things, easy.
And the fourth thing there is, if you want more advice on this, Michael and I, One Bright Cloud and TeamScale, we work together to deliver a really strong, safe cybersecurity analysis of your company. Get in touch. We'll love to talk to you in one way or another.
Nice. And to end this podcast, I wanted to talk to you about pitching, because we do this every time we do a podcast. We say something at the beginning. I've just recently done my first ever pitch workshop, which has taught me about pitching. And I just wanted to know, David, what have you even given it any thought? I know before this I hadn't.
So I did a bit of work on this 3 years ago, and I need to update my work. And back then I had to make sure I had a 3-second, a 30-second, and a 3-minute pitch. So that's the 3-second water cooler pitch, the 30-second lift pitch, and a 3-minute pitch over the desk to talk to people and explain to them what the hell One Bright Cloud does. Because what is my pitch at the moment? You say, I head up a team of techs and futurists looking at autonomous vehicles, AI, and digital transformation as a prerequisite to Industry 4. That is a very wide pitch. So, yeah, we play around with autonomous vehicles. We don't build. We don't sell, but we do routing. We look at how autonomous vehicles are going to change the world, and we talk to government agencies and everywhere that would look like they might want an autonomous vehicle. AI, we've done a lot of work with AI, and that along with the digital transformation. So we've got secure.
And just to interrupt you, how many people stay awake this long?
But I never pitch on all of them.
You're always pitching.
I don't.
It's one thing I learned. No. It's one thing I learned is learn your pitch, because you're always pitching.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's true. I go into conversations where they go, "So what do you do?" I work in IT.
I have heard you say.
Okay,
that.
I'm going to go over here and talk. I'm going to go over here and talk to the accountants. So I mean, I think it's something that we all need to work on in business. And the course that I'm not going to go through mine at the moment, because I've got to really rewrite it and think about stuff. And at the moment, I'm just saying that I'm an IT consultant, and we work with companies that are growing to make sure their technology stays on track. Which is similar to what you've got at the top, what we said at the beginning of this podcast. So, I think I guess what I'm trying to say here is, in companies like ours, especially in technology, you go to a networking event, and it's really hard to just go, "Oh yeah, I'm an IT." You've got to have something exciting. And I know that when you've gone into a conversation, David, you always go in there with something exciting, like, we work with autonomous vehicles, we work with AI, or and that gets people talking.
Well,
it's really hard to go in and say, "Have you been hacked lately?"
I could just say, "We do change." Okay, quiet now.
It's a bit broad. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Because
interesting.
really, if you want to take it down to it, that's what we do. We change things. We do technology change. That's all we do.
Yeah, well, my business card used to say I'm a problem solver, which is exactly what I do.
Could you solve the problem of RMBN?
Probably, but I don't have the patience to deal with politics.
Ah, that's where I come in.
Anyway, it's been nice talking to you again, David, and until next time, let's sign off. If you liked this podcast and you enjoyed our banter and our didn't fall asleep and you got to this point in the podcast, please subscribe using your podcast tool, and please leave a comment because we really like getting those. And if you want to contact us, David is on Twitter at DaveWith7, the numeral 7. And I'm on Twitter at Michael Lobb, MichaelLobb.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a safe week. Start going back to work and enjoy your lives.
And wash your hands.